question is always around this: where do fintechs fit in comparison to banks? I kind of answered some of that or discussed some of that with you guys, but I want to hear it from each of you. Do you see banks as competitors, or do you see banks as effectively partners where they will offer the balance sheet in the long run once you guys have proven your respective models? Because ultimately, nobody can really compete with banks. They're the custodian of all the money in the market. But ideally, they should be leveraging you guys to lend, as long as you've shown that you've been smart with your data and your own lending practices. So, Umair, I'll give this to you first, and then we can rotate anti-clockwise or clockwise.
Yeah.
And I left you for the last on this because I know you're already working with the banks and working very closely with them. So I would like for you to,
Sure.
to get feedback from you on how banks are responding to your product, because I think that
Sure.
that partnership is already taking place.
Sure. Well, but this is a question that's relevant for us, because when we were creating Adilfy, one of the questions that we were discussing internally was, should we become an NBFC? Right? And that seemed the logical thing to do, because everybody was becoming an NBFC. Everybody that's in digital lending, of course, you're an NBFC. So we chose a different route. We said, no, we will not become an NBFC. And primarily we chose the route because, first of all, we thought that we want to be in the infrastructure business and not directly in the lending business. Now the reason why did we choose that? Because if you think of lending as a pipeline, essentially there are three parts of that pipeline, right? So there's the origination part, then there's the underwriting part, and then there's the collection and servicing part. And all of this is underwritten by a balance sheet. So one of the questions we could never answer for ourselves was, how do we create that balance sheet? And how big of a balance sheet can we create? And what happens when we create a balance sheet in dollars and we're lending out in rupees and are exposed to a huge currency risk, which of course has played out in the last 2 years to all of our regrets. But that's a reality of Pakistan. So the way I look at it is, the ultimate play for fintechs is going to be in being really good at those three layered pieces on the top. Any one of those three pieces or more than one of those pieces. You can be a great originator. So for example, Postex is a great originator because you're uncovering customers that don't exist in the bank's minds. Abhi has done a great job of bringing on people through EWA, which banks weren't servicing, even though they might have been bank customers, but they weren't servicing them. So that's an origination play, right? Now, we're in the underwriting play, as we said, because that's what the scoring models are. And then, of course, because we work with banks' infrastructure, because in many cases, we as Technologics had implemented those systems, those core systems. So in many ways, we know them as well, or even better than the banks themselves know the systems, because we're the ones who put them in there in the first place. So we also play in the servicing part of the loan business, because that, those systems allow banks to service. So ultimately, I think the lending fintech business has to move towards kind of the upper layers and not so much of a balance sheet play, primarily because, in Pakistan, it's not easy to create these balance sheets. So yes, you raise 10, 15, 20, 30, $50 million, but, compare that to the smallest bank in Pakistan, and that's $1 billion balance sheet. That's the smallest bank in Pakistan, right? So I think there is a huge play here, and I think there's a play here in partnership. But of course, before banks are willing to partner with you, you have to prove that point. You have to take the arrows in the back, which these guys are doing. Some we are doing, but these guys are really doing. You have to take the arrows in the back and show, put in that hard work of showing that a market exists, that you can actually lend to these people, not stack up huge NPLs, make money on them, and then banks would be willing to partner and lend out their balance sheets for for people in the fintech business.